The latest environmental lunacy to come down the pike is something called carbon capture pipelines. Do people really take this seriously? What would happen if these pipelines are actually completed? And is there already pushback? Let's take a look. This is Beyond the Cover with your host, Gary Benoit, and today we have with us Tom DeWeese. Tom, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Tom. Now, Tom, of course, you have an organization called the American Policy Center that specializes in fighting for property rights, fighting for freedom. And we do appreciate all you do. And in addition to that particular position that you occupy as head of that organization that you founded, you are also a member of the National Council of the John Birch Society, another organization that believes in freedom. And Tom, we sure do appreciate the work you do in both organizations. And I'd like to start by pointing to an article that you wrote for a recent issue of the New American Magazine entitled Fighting Carbon Capture Pipelines, Stopping Environmental Idiocracy. And I think idiocracy is a really good word to use because it's just totally idiotic. But let's start with this question. Does anybody actually believe that propaganda, that it makes sense to take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and put it in these pipelines and store it in the ground to protect Mother Nature?
Yeah. Well, the environmentalists say they do, and that's they've been pushing this fear thing of climate change for several decades now, and that's what's obviously behind this. That what I've had environmentalists say to me many times is, it doesn't matter how many rights you think you have if you don't have a planet to stand on, and that is the beginning of using the fear factor to get us to voluntarily give up our rights. And if you begin to look at the Great Reset, the Green New Deal, of course, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, the real target of all of these is private property and the free enterprise system, individual liberty, the three pillars of freedom. But one of the things they're really going after with everything they've got right now is farmland across the country to control our farm production. And this is what's so incredible about it. They are promoting this idea that we, first of all, in a truly sustainable city, you would have that community would raise and provide everything it needs, including its food. So if you have to, grow some food on your patio or something, they don't ship anything in. That's the idea, that everything is sustainable, self-sustaining. And so this falls right in line with that. Getting rid of farmers across the country is a major push right now. And Bill Gates, of course, is buying up more farmland than anybody else, and he is putting the idea forward. He is totally opposed to the consumption of meat, which is exactly the same position of the World Wildlife Fund. And he believes that we can all make it in a factory, from plants. And then, of course, the second part they're moving on here is we're going to eat insects as well. And Bill Gates says, well, it might taste a little funny in the beginning, but you'll get used to it.
I wonder if Bill Gates himself would be the one eating insects. Or is he talking about that for the rest of us?
We're always talking about that for the rest of us.
Right,
that's
sure.
one of the keys here. And shutting down all of our energy use, shutting down our food supply. You keep asking the question, what are they going to do when all this is put in place? Why would you want to create such chaos? But they just keep moving on it because it's all about global governance. It is not about the environment. None of this stuff has anything to do with protecting the environment. And the carbon capture pipeline is the idea here. And when I first saw this issue, I said this was of all the issues I've worked against with the environmental movement, this is the dumbest that I have ever seen. That's why I use the word idiocracy from the film Idiocracy, actually. And the idea of taking CO2 out of the air and putting it into the ground and getting rid of it, when it is a fact that plants need CO2 in order to grow, in order to thrive. And if you get down to zero CO2, you're not going to, do anything about climate change. You're going to starve the entire earth if you do this. One of the things we found out as we were going through this, we actually got a chart from, it was actually a Navy chart about CO2. And it shows that just as an average to survive, we need 1,400 million parts per million of CO2 in order for plants to live. We actually need more than that, but at least that. And this chart is showing we're dropping down to close to 300 parts per million. Our plants are starving, and here are these idiocracy tyrants that are promoting that we get it down more and more and more to lower levels.
And of course, what you're describing, every school child knows. Now, they may not know the actual statistics as to how much CO2 is in the atmosphere, but they certainly know that plants need CO2. And without CO2, there are no plants. And that's part of what I think what makes this so idiotic.
It's totally against and real sound environmentalism. When you come right down to it, it is an absolute enemy of that. The plants need the CO2. And the other thing we're finding out about this, and I wrote about it in the article, is that there is one a scientist out of Iowa who has reported that with all the solar panels and the wind towers and so forth, I mean, here you have thousands and thousands of acres with that. What people don't know is that underneath those solar panels is cement and infrastructure, wires and so forth. There's nothing growing under there. When I first started fighting the environmental movement, I would always get somebody on a call-in on a radio show, for example, saying, Tom, you're just part of the AstroTurf crowd. You want to pave the earth. Now we are setting up thousands, if not millions of acres of solar panels that is nothing but cement. Who wants to pave the earth? I want the trees.
Exactly. And if somebody were to simply stop and think, these conclusions should be absolutely obvious.
Yeah. But you see, this is what must be understood. They're using the environment as the excuse. In the old days, when tyrants wanted to rule the world, they put armies together, they marched in, they plundered, they pillaged, they killed people, they broke things, and they took control. These guys are absolutely incredible. They have found a way to get us to voluntarily give up our liberties through fear. And the fear is, if you don't have a planet to stand on, doesn't matter how many rights you think you have. That's the fear factor. They're getting people to voluntarily give it up. And you have a lot of people going, oh, golly, we've got to do all these things to make sure that we're protecting the earth. And if you look at all of the programs they're putting in place, almost every one of them is actually damaging the environment more than helping it. I was just talking about the solar panels, and when the sun's not shining, they don't produce anything.
Yes.
The wind towers, they all need oil. They need plastic for the solar panels. They need oil to turn the wind turbines. All of that. So cut it all off and just take a look at California. What more do we need to say about how stupid all of this is? If you look at California, where they have been moving forward ahead of everybody else with all this, now they're saying they're going to ban gasoline-powered cars by 2035, but the next day they have to announce that, don't try to charge your battery-powered car because we're having a shortage, because they've gone to this whole process.
I actually saw those two different news items within a day of each other. And boy, talk about irony.
Absolutely.
But a lot of people are seeing it too. And of course, that's the good news, because most people possess common sense. And recently, Tom, you went on a speaking tour and you went out to the Midwest. Was it Iowa that you had gone to?
Yes, it was.
Okay, you had gone to Iowa and you had a very successful tour. What did you think of that tour in terms of the understanding of the people you met? And did it encourage you that we can turn things around and save our country.
It absolutely did. In fact, I spent half today gathering information that's come in since then of things that have been happening. First of all, I did 5 cities in 5 days, and this was set up by the John Birch Society, and
Mm-hmm.
Tammy Kovitz is the field coordinator there, and did a wonderful job getting that together. I talked to several hundred people throughout those 5 days, and most of them were farmers or property owners, people concerned. And what has happened since then, first of all, I spoke directly to county supervisors,
Mm-hmm.
and the county supervisors have been wimping around. The Iowa Utilities Board is what decides what is a public utility, and these companies, this Summit Carbon Solutions and Navigator CO2 Ventures, the two companies, private companies, trying to put this thing together, are trying to appeal to the Iowa Utilities Board to make them public utilities, giving them the power of eminent domain. And a whole lot of counties supervisors have written to that board saying, please, we don't want this. But they've had this wimpy little way of saying it, like, golly, we hope you don't do this. And I went ballistic when I saw that. And I said directly to them, this is how you represent your people. You were elected to represent the people and their needs, their interests, and you don't sit there and cower to an appointed board that politicians created in the first place. You don't hide behind that, and this is having an impact. More activists are showing up at these public meetings where these two companies are trying to put this together, and they are asking these questions. One of the questions one of them asked was, is BlackRock involved in this? And if so, how? BlackRock is the major operation that is buying up land all over the country, city and rural. And the guy didn't want to answer the question. He finally looked down and kind of hemmed and hawed, and he said, 90% of our money is coming from them. And this tells you everything you need to know. This is an agenda. What has begun to happen, they're continuing to meet, they're continuing to put the pressure on. In South Dakota, we had 2 counties that came out and passed a moratorium saying you cannot build this in our counties. What I told the Iowa supervisors was, if you would pass legislation to protect the property rights of the people in your county and then join hands with other counties and do this, you would make an impenetrable wall that they couldn't get past. This is beginning to happen, particularly in North and South Dakota. In North Dakota, they just passed another resolution there requiring that they have to have 100% of voluntary easements signed, or they can't build this. And they also have to pay a 3% of the total project in a permit fee. 100%. The other 2 counties there, there's another county, as I said, there are 2 counties, Brown and Spink counties, who passed those moratoriums. Now there's a 3rd county in South Dakota, McPherson County, that did the same thing they did in North Dakota, saying that they had to have 100%. And
that's absolutely tremendous.
Ordinance.
And obviously that would not be happening if people were not gaining the understanding.
Yeah, and the thing is, you just get a few counties in the way, and they can't get through. They can't go. You don't need all of them. You just need a couple of them standing strong, and that's what we're starting to get. There was somebody at one of my meetings that recorded it, and he made 300 copies of it and passed them out, and then he had it in a movie theater, and people came and watched it there. This is what happened there, and it's continuing to grow.
Oh, that is tremendous. Now, obviously, there are people who sincerely believe the propaganda. They sincerely believe it is a good thing to take CO2, take carbon out of the atmosphere, and put it into these carbon capture pipelines, and then bury the carbon, pump it on the ground. But I would think fewer and fewer people would be believing that as they, as they simply think about the propaganda that they have been given. But as you pointed out, Tom, there's also an agenda. Obviously, the architects of this scheme could not believe this propaganda. They must know exactly what they are doing. What is the agenda, Tom? What are they trying to accomplish by basically destroying farmland and, for that matter, destroying the energy resources of the United States?
What they accomplish is total control. They control our energy, they control our travel, they control our food supplies and so forth. People are much easier to subjugate when they're hungry, and they know that. And that's really it's global. The Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum, and so forth. They've literally said this, and they now have on Wall Street corporations that are rushing to come out with their product is sustainable, prove their product sustainable, because they are now ready to not invest in a company that cannot prove its product is sustainable. Sustainable is the catchword for all of this. It has nothing to do with protecting the environment. It has everything to do with control. And that's what the word really means in their minds.
I agree completely. And of course, when they say sustainable, what they mean is a middle-class lifestyle is not sustainable. Owning a private home is not sustainable. Owning a private automobile is not sustainable. And they want to control everything. Tom, we so much appreciate everything you're doing to expose this conspiracy for global control and for sounding the alarm, both through your own organization as well as through the John Birch Society. Tom, before we finish up, could you describe your own organization and how people would be able to contact you or contact the American Policy Center?
Absolutely. Our website is americanpolicy.org. And on our site, we have all kinds of, I've got a 30-year archive of articles we've written on all these issues. You get all the background you want, everything from the environmental stuff to education to personal privacy and all of that. I've written 3 books. One is called, most recent one was called Sustainable, The War on Free Enterprise, Private Property, and Individuals. Has all the background on who the players are, what their policies are, and everything. And one of the things that we are trying to teach people is how to fight back in your local community. Fight from the bottom up rather than trying to start from the top down. It's much more effective. And we have a manual that we have there available. It's called a Local Activist Handbook, and it's on how to organize and begin to fight back.
Well, thank you very much, Tom, and also encourage our readers to see your article. It's in the September 12th issue of the New American Magazine, and the title of the article is Fighting Carbon Capture Pipelines, Stopping Environmental Idiocracy. Thank you so much, Tom.
My pleasure. Thank you.